I'm joking. You're muted. I just saw you. I just saw you flapping your lips is all. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran, at Lafayette_D on the Twitters, and we got a banger tonight. I feel like every single Thursday I'm saying, oh, yeah, great game we've got on tap today. Either a double-digit spread or a total under 13. But the pricing makes it interesting. I will say that much. And a game is a game. We all got the same players. We all got the same team, so I'm going to talk about it with Neil Orfield at PlayerQDFS and Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. What's up, boys?
Hey, man, doing well. How long are we going to be talking about that the bird app as the place to follow? Right now, it's not looking super fun over there, but yeah, follow me at Draftaholic as long as we can.
Follow Neil at PlayerQDFS over at Truth Social. We've got a great show ahead of us today. And like it's not going anywhere. It's not. It happens every time, you know. People on the right are like, we're going here, we're going here. Then people on the left are like, we're going here, we're going here. Guess what? They all end back up. Go look at what he tweets. You're like, I'm out of here. And then you just see him tweeting incessantly about how they're leaving to yesterday.
No, there was an all hands apparently today where Musk said that bankruptcy's on the table.
So you think Twitter just disappears?
I have no business analyst, Draftaholic. Follow him for his business. And what was it this morning? The anatomy takes. We are going into multiple directions today. But yeah, I don't know. It's a wild place right now. I'm enjoying it a little bit.
Yeah, that's I kind of enjoy just watching things burn, metaphorically speaking.
It's kind of fun.
You know what I mean, Neil? Like sometimes you just have to sit back and realize we're not in control. Doesn't matter.
So you know what my Twitter experience is right now? So I bought the blue check mark. So I already had Twitter Blue. I had Twitter Blue already. It was like a $2 upgrade. So I was like, fine, I'll pay that, whatever. And I'm just getting roasted all day today. Everybody hates anybody with the blue check mark. It's just like all of a sudden I am the villain. I am the heel on Twitter right now. And I kind of like it. It's kind of funny. Generally, the people attacking me are the ones who have like 20 followers, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm like, I don't understand why they care. Like, it should be the people who already have blue check marks that care, the people who are like really invested in Twitter. But it's the people who just like don't seem to be that active on Twitter anyway, are very mad about people buying the blue check mark. So it's been an enjoyable experience.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who gives a shit? Like, you got the check mark. $2 upgrade from what you're already paying. Big deal.
Yeah.
I already had one. But
I know, so you should be the one who's mad that the rest of us can just buy it now.
Yeah, exactly. Who am I? I'm a nobody now. Happy to have you guys with us, though. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. And if you want to join, hit join down below. Get the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, a nice blue check mark for $8 a month. No, it's like $2.99. We're doing some cool stuff. Like we had the survivor pool going, some other things. Bunch of stuff. But if you don't want to join, you don't have to. Guess what? Your opinion and your word is just as important as it would be without that sweet, amazing looking badge next to your name. You guys want to talk some football?
Let's do it.
Let's talk more business news.
So Twitter's going bankrupt though, huh? All right. Didn't know that.
Clue.
Nah,
the Falcons are in first place. That's the part that's maybe more wild.
At 4-5. Yeah. They actually have something to play for. It's amazing. Like they're not winning anything, but if you're a Falcons fan, you have to at least be enjoying the ride. That's all.
Absolutely. I mean, am I any more confident that the Vikings can do anything than I mean, probably a little bit. I do think the Vikings have a better shot than the Falcons, but I'm not that confident that the Vikings are that great, and they're 7-1.
Yeah, that's true. And just one more thing. Matt M said the Showdown shaman shouldn't have to pay for a blue check mark, even if he is follower shaming. Yeah, a little follower shaming there.
But so I try to be very clear that I'm not shaming you. It's totally fine if you are not actively trying to build a following, if that's how you want to be, your Twitter experience doesn't have to be about building a following.
Well, we should also
then why would you care?
We should add a little bit of context. Like Neil literally dealt with this in the last 2 weeks, someone pretending that they were you. And
also
so
true.
In this situation, actually having a verified account
a true imposter who bought just as many followers as Neil. That's a great point, Matt.
Right.
Great point. But no, I only mentioned that because I forgot to introduce him as the Showdown Shaman. That's exactly what he is. The Showdown Shaman, Matt Savoca, little Thursday night football. Let's get into it. Tibby the Broker said, I want to buy crypto, Neil. Neil over here.
That was his bit, reaching out to people. Yeah.
Jorge said, isn't Neil the owner of Twitter? At this point, who the hell knows, man? Thank you for the super chat. Quarterback position, fellas. We got about an hour and 5 minutes, and we're gonna break down every position. So one by one, we'll get it done. A bunch of ballers at the top. So at the top, Neil, you got PJ Walker. You got Marcus Mariota, obviously in an offense that would prefer not to throw the football if they didn't have to. I mean, lost the game by 18 points the other week and threw 13 times. So it's not to say they can't, but they don't like to. They got CPAT back in that backfield. And then Walker, great game against the same Atlanta Falcons team. Let me set the table for you here. Lost in overtime, should have won. Then he got benched last week after throwing for 9 yards in the first half, but Wilkes is going right back to him today. So who knows if he lasts the whole game? Who knows if Mariota throws 15 times? Floor is yours.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This is one of the rare showdown slates where I think it might be viable to play a backup quarterback. So I'm not playing any Baker Mayfield and PJ Walker in the same lineup. I think I'm going to try to get a few shares of Baker Mayfield tonight. I think that's the most interesting thing because we just saw it last week. PJ Walker came out through 3 for 10 for 9 yards in the first half. And then they brought Baker Mayfield and he threw it 20 sometimes in the second half. He was just, clearly they went to Baker Mayfield and he had a little bit more success. PJ Walker, I think, also threw 2 interceptions on those 10 throws in the first half. So we might have a really short leash here for PJ Walker. It's not something that I'm trying to have in a ton of lineups, but if you build 20 lineups and you have one Baker Mayfield lineup instead of PJ Walker, I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world. As you say, the weather is sort of a big factor here with the hurricane coming in. We're seeing some winds. We're seeing some rain. As far as quarterbacks go, I think it doesn't necessarily hurt Marcus Mariota, who's active in the running game as well. I could see him rushing a little bit more due to the weather. It's an interesting spot.
Matt, how worried are we? And we should say that these quarterbacks can find ways to fuck things up with sunny skies and 0 mile per hour winds, just to get that on the table. But how concerned are we about old Hurricane Nicole barreling through North Carolina?
I think that it's like a 4 out of 10 right now. I'm looking at the sustained wins. Looks like that Vikings-Buffalo game might have higher sustained wins right now than we're currently seeing. There's going to be some rain. The Falcons want to run anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really change the game plan for either team. In terms of team pass plays per game, the Panthers are 25th in the NFL. The Falcons are competing with the Bears for dead last. Right now, I wanted to ask you, Neil, Showdown Shaman, if you're playing something like 20 lineups, is it crazy to just have 0 PJ Walker and 0 Baker Mayfield? With the chance that it's a bad quarterback on the shortest leash, we could see Mayfield in the second quarter if things go incredibly awry, and we could see Mayfield still not succeed. It's, it's something where I'm considering maybe it's hard if you're playing a mass multi-entry that way, but if you're playing 20 lineups, maybe all Mariota isn't the craziest thing in the world, especially with the rushing upside he has.
Absolutely, that's viable. Yeah, if you're playing 20 lineups, I don't think that's even a bad idea necessarily, especially if you do think Baker Mayfield is going to take over in the second half. You think that's a likely outcome. I mean, they're both 9,600, so half a game for each of them, or even 3 quarters for Baker, 1 quarter for PJ, whatever you expect it to be. Certainly, it's a viable fade. Again, like you said, out of 150, I'm not going to do it. There might be some 150 maxers who actually take a stand like that. That's not that crazy of a stand. So I like that idea.
Oh, that's not great. I'm on the other side of this one. So I don't love PJ Walker, but this is just such a, if you were to say, all right, put PJ Walker in a place where he can succeed, I would say, okay, let's go up against the Atlanta secondary that has practice squad players. I know Hawkins is back, but you still are down significant players in this defense. AJ Terrell is out. Casey Hayward's on the IR. Their secondary isn't bad. It's so bad to the point where PJ Walker could look decent. Like he did last time he faced this team and threw for, what was it? 317 yards. I mean, obviously that's a ceiling game for PJ Walker at this point, but I don't know, man. I look at this, I'm not excited about him, but he's not super expensive. We know the ball's going to DJ Moore or Terrace Marshall, who's playing 90+% of snaps, running routes on almost every single drop back. I think as much as it pains me, I think the market overreacts to blowouts in a sense, like last week. Remember, this Falcons team got blown out almost as bad by the same Bengals team just a week or two before that. I don't know. I don't think he'll be great, but I think PJ Walker has a shot at putting up decent numbers today.
Okay, let me just respond to that real quickly, because I'm not suggesting that is what I'm going to do. Matt was just asking if it was a viable strategy. So I'm saying that it is a viable strategy. I still look at the tools and I see that, PJ Walker looks pretty good on our tools. And I'm with you. This is as good of a spot as they could possibly have for PJ Walker. So I think that he's probably on a short leash. They probably would rather get Baker Mayfield. I mean, I shouldn't say that. If they want to start Baker Mayfield, they could start Baker Mayfield. But I do think that he is probably on a short leash. So I don't think they necessarily feel the need to, get PJ Walker going. If he is struggling early, I just think that there is the potential that they could switch to Baker Mayfield mid-game. But that doesn't mean that I'm fading PJ Walker. I do agree with you that this is about as good of a spot as he could possibly be in. We have him, 35% projected ownership, 35% optimal in the utility spot. So I am going to have a good amount of PJ Walker. I'm just also going to be mixing in a few Baker Mayfield lineups, and I'm going to have several lineups that don't have either of them.
Yeah, look, I get both sides, and it appears some people in chat have an issue with what I'm saying. Someone said he's garbage or whatever. The whole game is garbage. Like the whole game is bad. You're not playing PJ Walker on a main slate, but yeah, I don't know. Matt,
right.
all I'm saying is
Chad is kind of right. It's a player who doesn't throw deep, who doesn't throw for a lot of touchdowns, doesn't score a lot of fantasy points, has a short leash. From a real football perspective, there are just so many ways to see this going wrong. But this is where the math comes in, right, guys? This is where simulations help us so much, because still 33 to 50% of the time, nearly a coin flip chance, because he's a quarterback on a one-game slate and he's got some upside against this bad defense. He could easily show up in the optimal lineup, especially as a flex play if no other flex skill players really show up today, which is very viable.
Yeah, look, you definitely don't have to play PJ Walker. Plenty of other ways you can do it. You could play Mariota. Who knows? Maybe Mariota throws 15 times. I don't know. I can't. This is a tough game. One more thing, fellas. I want both of your opinions on this. Then we can really dig in, because I think this is actually really important. Do we want to be careful? I see overreaction, and I think Matt kind of alluded to this already, but I see overreactions about weather, not just today, but all the time. Like outside of, Bills Patriots last year, where balls were kicked and they went backwards, weather games can be rough, but generally speaking, some rain that isn't downpour and wind that isn't sustained above, I think Alex said it was 15 or 16 miles per hour, might have even said 17, isn't usually impacting games to the point where like you can't touch the passing game.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. I'm going to be playing the wide receivers. I'm going to be playing the quarterbacks, but I also think it makes sense to make some lineups where you do factor in the weather a little bit more. And there are plenty of guys maybe like Laviska Shenault, they could use Laviska as a running back in certain scenarios. He might be a guy that gets more involved if there is bad weather. Certainly Cordarrelle Patterson, Chuba Hubbard, like we have plenty of running options. So you can make some lineups that factor in the weather and think, the weather, because at this point, I think it's a little bit unclear what the weather is going to look like. It's up in the air, how much rain there's going to be, how much wind there is going to be. So you could make some lineups that are factoring in the weather a little bit more and some that are not factoring it in much at all. I think that is certainly probably the approach that I'm going to be taking, where I'm going to try to have some lineups that have, more running backs, like maybe 3 running backs in the same lineup, and Marcus Mariota, because he rushes on his own, so he's not as affected by the weather. I think there are ways to make lineups that do factor in the weather and some that don't as well.
Matt, do you still have the weather report in front of you?
I can pull it up. I mean, I'm seeing sustained winds of like 11, 12 miles an hour, light rain. Yeah, this is not the type of forecast that I look at and go, I need to adjust things. Now, narratively speaking, if we're building out for mass multi-entry and we want to put a section of lineups together where, okay, this game gets sloppy because these 2 teams are sloppy. Yeah, I totally get that, especially because you're dealing with 2 teams who are in the bottom 7 in pass plays per game anyway. So I think building for a sludge fest, as I like to call it, when these teams like to grind it out and kind of creates this ugly game with low total plays, is very, very viable. Again, 3 running backs, that's pushing it, but I like it.
Yeah. And listen, that's the cool thing about showdowns, right? Is you can play your own narrative. Like, you can do what Neil said, play some of those lineups where they almost like tee times in golf, where the weather's expected to be worse, the wind's expected to be worse in the afternoon. You play all early tee time, stuff like that. The total in this game, let's see, did come down though. So if we're trusting Vegas, it went from 44 to 41.5.
Okay. Yeah. Wait, it went from 41 to 41.5?
44 to 41.5.
Oh, that's honestly pretty significant. That's not what the weather report looks like here, though.
I know.
Huh.
I'm just giving out the info I have, right?
Do they have like better radar?
I don't know. All I know is when I looked at it yesterday, it was 44. I still have it up here when I did the betting picks video, and now it's at 41.5. It actually was off the board and just came back up on DraftKings.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see. Anyway, Matt, what else do you want to do at quarterback with Mariota? I know you talked about, like, is it reasonable to go with that approach with no PJ Walker? And I agree. I certainly think it is, but I will have some PJ Walker. Do you like Mariota a lot?
I guess I kind of do, in the sense that, we talk about this all the time. The quarterback on the 1-game slate rule, of course, we're going to like it in that regard. Mariota has actually been kind of efficient in terms of adjusted yards per attempt. He's still top 12 in the NFL, but it's all about this Konami code. In red zone carries, he's 4th in the NFL. In carries per game, he's 7th in the NFL. His 3 rushing touchdowns are 5th among all quarterbacks. And he's the only quarterback who I feel fairly confident we can say with 100% certainty, barring injury, will be playing the whole game. So in that regard, I do think he's a great play. And I do think you can play him with Cordero Patterson and kind of capture a lot of the theoretical upside of the Atlanta Falcons, because we haven't gotten into the receiving core of this team, but like, talk about wanting to take a shower after playing any of them. Even though some of them are talented, it's getting gross for these Atlanta receivers.
We're going to get into that, unfortunately. MM3 Cipoletti, he's a member here. Okay, you can hit that join down below. But super chat, thanks, man. He said, I live here in Charlotte. Weather's off and on, not worth expecting things are going to be the same throughout. So we got someone on the front lines, boys. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks though, man. Wayne Ingersoll, welcome to the team. Welcome to Team Stokastic. Nice looking badge. All right. So, Neil, you got anything else on quarterbacks? I know you're busy building lineups. I'm trying to give you some time in between things here, but anything else you want to hit on at quarterback? Any specific ways you're playing it?
Yeah, I got to say, I love these 3-man shows that we do where I can just focus on the build as opposed to when it's just me and the host and I'm like talking as I'm building.
I see you
this
over
is way
there.
easier. Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Yeah, so I wrote an article earlier today talking about how I'm attacking the quarterbacks. So Marcus Mariota, I guess I should add, I have said that he is a great rushing quarterback. So I think that you could do builds that you pair Marcus Mariota with 0 pass catchers. You could have naked Marcus Mariota. It is not my preference, particularly in the captain spot. I would rather have at least 1 pass catcher if I have Marcus Mariota at captain. If I have him in the flex, I think that it's more viable to run him out there naked. It's still probably, there's obviously positive correlations still with pass catchers, even if he's in the flex, but I think that is viable because he's rushed for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns this year. He is a very capable rushing quarterback, so you don't necessarily need to pair him with somebody, although it would be my preference, especially if he's in the captain spot. Phillip Walker, on the other hand, I think that you need to have at least 1 pass catcher in your lineup if you have Phillip Walker in there, regardless of where he is. And especially if you have him at captain, I would prefer to have multiple pass catchers if you have Phillip Walker at captain, because he's rushed for a total of 25 yards so far this year. Not a great rusher. So I'd prefer to have multiple pass catchers. I think that's all I really need to say. I've already said I'm going to have probably a few shares of Baker Mayfield. I don't know. I kind of think that it could go over-owned by the field, though, too. I think I have a little bit of concern that the field's going to get there on Baker Mayfield, in which case I'd rather not. Currently, we have an under 1% ownership projection, which I'm probably going to be a little bit over that on Mayfield.
Talk some running backs here, fellas. Before we do, though, No House Advantage, sponsor of the Live Before Lock show. And boy, is No House Advantage just, essentially giving out free money right now with the amount of overlay. Jordan's going to throw it on the screen. I'm assuming, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of overlay? Okay, so it's very likely not going to get closed. That's how it's kind of been all the time because it's a new site. They're getting people over there. They're building. And in order to do so, No House Advantage is going to run bigger contests with much bigger overlay. And you get a $50 first match deposit bonus when you sign up using the link in the description or the one that Jordan could throw in the chat right now. Very sweet site. We have all the tools for free over at Stokastic. So even if you don't have a sub, I'll tell you how to get one later. Even if you don't have one, you go over there. You find the No House Advantage lineup generator. You find the No House Advantage projections. And all the research that you do for DFS is same thing is applicable for No House Advantage. You're just building lineups, but with props. No salary cap, with player props. No juice on these props, just the over or the under. The ones you like it the most, they go at the top of your lineup. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident in, they go at the bottom of the lineup. They get the fewest points. And you play against the field as you would anywhere else, like DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, wherever it is. Check it out. Use the link. Get your $50 first match deposit bonus. Use the free tools that we have, the awesome No House Advantage tools, all our player prop tools, all our projections, the generator. And keep in mind, these props are static. They don't change throughout the week. So if you're putting the work in, you're finding an edge over there for sure. And you can also play against the house if you want. You hit all your picks, you 20x your entry fee. So a lot of different variations, a lot of cool formats. If you haven't checked it out, nohouseadvantage.com. Use that link when you sign up, get your deposit bonus, use all the tools to win some money. All right, running back, Matt. Let's start with the Atlanta Falcons backfield. Patterson's been back or came back last week. Looked nice. Got all 3 of the goal line carries. You love to see that. Had a 38-yard touchdown called back. Still got into the end zone twice. Barreled over a defender. Just crushed him to fall into the end zone, which was a beautiful sight to behold. Led the team in carries. But Tyler Algier still had 10. Huntley still had, 7, I think it was. So on short rest, going from Sunday to Thursday after being on the IR, do you think Arthur Smith increases the workload for Patterson or keeps it around where it was last week?
Hell yeah, I think he increases the workload. He's the best player on the team right now. He's the only thing that works on the team right now. So if you want to look at the tools and say that he's going to be popular and there's reasons to fade him, that's fine. But ultimately, I think Cordero Patterson, in a scenario where Atlanta keeps this close, they've already gone to overtime with this team, or they are able to pull off a victory here, I do think that Cordero Patterson is going to be a pretty solid play. I think we're going to see over a 50% snap share. It was 38% last week. We're going to see more than 6 routes run and more than 1 target and 13 rushes. That's pretty modest considering the fact that he got 4 of those in the end zone. And as you mentioned, I was going to mention it too, he had a huge run called back. I think he's the best player in the Atlanta offense right now. And that's a sad thing considering the high expectations I had in the beginning of the year for Pitts and London.
Yeah, it is crazy how expensive Patterson is, but Makes sense. And chat's doing a better job than I do at my own job, saying many of them. Hit that like button and atone for your sins, my friends. Have you not done so yet? Appease the YouTube overlords. It takes a single second. Make it so when I go downstairs, I'm not ashamed to look my family in the eyes. There's got to be somebody out there that can get this number up looking good so we can all feel good about ourselves. Now, Neil, as always, you can help me with this. Matt will tell the people they're dummies, but that's kind of just how it goes.
Yeah, no, the people are not dummies. I think that our chat is so smart. They're going to know exactly where to click to get that thumbs up. I know Matt doesn't believe in them, but I think that they're going to be able to figure out exactly which thumb is facing upwards, and that's when we want them to click.
But Neil, what if these people watching only have like 20 followers on Twitter?
They're still valuable people. They're valuable members of society. That is a choice that they've made to not be very active on Twitter. And that is totally fine. That's a perfectly fine way to interact with Twitter. And you have the right to get mad at those of us who buy blue check marks.
May I interest you in blue like mark? It's the same like mark, but blue. $91 a month.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Running backs, over to you, Neil. We've got the Falcons side of the ball. Your thoughts on Patterson and your thoughts on these secondary options, specifically Algier, but Huntley too. What do we do with the backfield today? And a question that many people ask, like, we try and drill down here. Are you going to have some lineups with, Patterson and Algier? Are you going to have multi-Atlanta running back lineups?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that I like to do in showdown slates in particular, having multiple running backs from the same team. The field kind of shies away from it. But usually if a team is able to run all over a defense, they're going to be doing it with multiple backs. Like, there's no reason that both of these running backs can't get there. Now, of course, Cordarrelle Patterson and Tyler Algier are a bit expensive to play together. Let's see, $18,000 together. That is expensive to have them in the same lineup. But I think this is a game where it could be very low scoring, and really you're just looking for raw points. And even if you are overspending for those two, if they are able to run all over this Panthers defense, which I think is certainly within the range of outcomes, and if there is, if there are win concerns, certainly that just makes running backs all the more viable. So I'm definitely going to have some lineups that have both of Cordarrelle Patterson and Tyler Algier. I'm with Matt. Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be, I would expect him to be very involved. He's going to be the lead back here. The one thing that I've been sort of shocked by so far this year is Cordarrelle Patterson's only been targeted 8 times on the entire year. This is a former wide receiver, has been targeted 8 times on the entire year. But maybe he benefits actually from a weather game where they're doing more short dump offs. Maybe Marcus Mariota is more likely to look his way. Of course, Mariota might just take off on his own in situations where he gets in trouble, but maybe Patterson gets more involved if there is some weather. So I like Patterson quite a bit. And Tyler Algier, I'm going to be right about with the field. We have the field projected for 19%. Currently, I have 20%. Not sure that this is my final crunch yet, but yeah, for sure, I'm going to have some with both of them.
It is odd though, right? That Patterson had 5 targets in week 1, and then the other 4 games he played, he has 1, 1, 0, and 1. He's getting a lot more work on the ground, but yeah, they just don't throw the ball.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, I don't get it why they're not throwing. I mean, they don't throw the ball in general, but they especially are not throwing the ball to running backs at all, which kind of surprises me.
Matt, go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is something that the GOAT Alex Baker, I remember him talking about, a couple of years ago, where rushing quarterbacks, even in situations where it absolutely makes sense, this team's constantly in come from behind mode. A dump off to a running back would be a high value target in most situations, but instead, a scrambling quarterback will take off on his own.
Absolutely. And hopefully Patterson gets enough work on the ground and gets the goal line opportunities. What about, Matt, the other side where you have Chuba Hubbard returning? He's expected to play. But Dante Foreman had one brilliant game against the same Falcons team in week 8. The weird thing is Wilkes had said, even after Hubbard got hurt, and it was Foreman and Blackshear coming into week, was it 8? Yeah. He's like, oh, we're going to have a timeshare, which we all knew was nonsense. And then Dante Foreman got all the work last week, whatever. The whole team stunk. But do you think we go back to a timeshare? Because if your answer is no, then Dante Foreman might be the best play on the slate at his price point.
This is a great situation where if you're playing multiple lineups, build for the scenarios we're talking about. I can see Neil nodding. That makes me feel a little bit better, because I think the most likely outcome is yes. The last time we saw Chuba Hubbard on the field, he played a 48% snap share, 9 carries, 3 targets. I think that's pretty fair to say is a reasonable outcome for him. But if I'm wrong, which of course I may be, then you hit the nail on the head. Foreman could be a great play. Our tools honestly say that Foreman could be really solid, especially in the flex spot.
I wanted to see how many carries we had Foreman projected for. I can pull that up. Neil, how do you approach Carolina's backfield today? Not just what you expect to happen, but how you intend on playing this. This is kind of your expertise, right?
So currently I'm actually under the field on Foreman, over the field on Hubbard. We saw in the last game, the first game with CMC traded, Hubbard actually started that game and was getting the bulk of the carries early on, as it was a split backfield, but then Hubbard went out, Foreman took over. Now, of course, it's hard to read because Foreman has been pretty good without Hubbard and was very good in the matchup against Atlanta. So it's really hard to know exactly how they're going to approach it. Like why change things up if Foreman is working? But I think that Hubbard at 5,800, with the way I play, leaving salary on the table, I think there's a good enough chance that it is just going to be a split backfield that I'm probably going to have more of Hubbard. That's what I have right now. I'm under the field on Foreman. I'm over the field, and I have a larger share of Hubbard than I have of Foreman. But I think that they're both, great plays. And again, you can play them together. Same thing I said with Patterson and Algier. Foreman and Hubbard is even cheaper, certainly viable to play both of these guys in the same lineup. So I'm totally cool playing both of them in different lineups and in the same lineup.
Okay. Eric Traub with the super chat, $9.99 for the blue check mark. Yeah. Or blue like mark. Sorry. Eventually that'll happen. Ryan, favorite cash game captain tonight? Matt?
Mariota.
Neil?
Mariota.
All right. He does have the legs to make it happen.
Yeah. I feel like Mariota is the most game script proof of any player in this game. Like he's going to be, if there is big weather concerns, Mariota is going to get there on the ground most likely. If there are not, Mariota can do it both ways. So yeah, he's just game script proof.
Looking at this position just a little bit further, Matt, you're talking 5 different running backs who will almost all certainly see the field tonight in one capacity or another. Are there any guys that you just don't want anything to do with?
Not in a showdown slate. I think if you're playing like 5 to 20 lineups, I think it's very reasonable to say, okay, I'll cut it off at Raheem Blackshear or Huntley. But even there, Huntley has gotten some goal line carries here. Now, most of them came when Patterson was off the field, but you never know, especially in these one-game slates, running backs who get nicked up all the time or just simply spelled for a drive or two. I absolutely think all really 6 options at the running back position are viable if you're playing multiple lineups.
All right. And Neil, will you have any Avery Williams, who is listed as a running back here? Upside is 1 or 2 targets at best.
Yeah, I don't currently have any Avery Williams. I think I'm cutting it off after Huntley. I've got both Huntley and Blackshear. Blackshear, it's hard to read whether Blackshear will have a role. He seems to be the one who has been involved in the passing game. He had 4 targets in the last game for the Panthers. So it's possible that he retains some role as the receiving back. I'm not really confident in that because I think that Chubbard or Foreman both could potentially take on, more receiving work than they have so far. But currently, I'm a little bit above the field. We have Blackshear coming in at 2.5%. I'm just a little bit above that. And Huntley, I'm actually below the field. But maybe, with the goal line opportunities, maybe he actually is a more viable, or at least as viable as Blackshear. So maybe I need to kind of up that a little bit. But Huntley coming in at 7%. I don't love that. I think that he is pretty clearly the 3rd string here behind Patterson and Algier. So I'll have some of those guys, but yeah, I'm not going down to, I currently don't have any of Spencer Brown or Avery Williams or Keith Smith.
All right. I could be completely wrong on this. If I had to guess, I would think that most of Blackshear's production came in the second half when it was a stone blowout. I could be wrong. I haven't looked that up. I would think, let me see. Yeah. It was Blackshear, I think, like the entire second half.
Okay.
Not saying he can't get out there. I'm just saying.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, if he was getting it all in the second half, that's certainly a good point.
Maybe it was some in the first half too, and I could have just missed that. It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible because I'm just, cursory look right now, but it looks like later in this game everything was Blackshear. I don't know. Do you think he gets worked in today, Matt?
I really don't. It's a situation where if you're playing a large field tournament and you want to say, okay, a backup running back gets a shot, that's one thing. But I do think with Hubbard back in the lineup, he's by far my, preferred secondary option here. I did want to ask one thing though, with Avery Williams possibly playing returner, could you boost the Atlanta defense if you were to get Avery Williams in a lineup or a few of them here and there? If hit the jackpot and double up on a touchdown there.
Yeah, I think that's certainly viable. I'm currently not planning on Avery Williams, but that's something that people used to do all the time. I feel like we haven't seen that many return touchdowns the past couple of years. Am I often thinking that? I feel like we used to see so many more than we have lately. But yeah, I think that is certainly viable if you are going to be playing Avery Williams because he's not very involved as a running back. I think it definitely makes sense to give a boost to the defense and maybe have some correlation there.
Yeah, ever since they changed the rules for where you kick off from,
right,
it's crushed returns. Punt returns, maybe, but kick returns. I think there's been one kick return all season for a touchdown. Wasn't it?
Is that
Bateman?
it? Wow.
Maybe there's been more. I thought it was I thought Bateman had one to open the game for Baltimore. Matt, do you remember? I don't think that
I'm looking. I think Bateman. No, Duvernay. I think we're thinking of Duvernay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I knew it was Baltimore. Right. Thank you.
I actually don't think there has been a punt return touchdown this year.
Really?
I might be wrong. Chat, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there has been one this year.
Let's see. Now I'm curious. Avery Williams.
Turpin.
Oh, Kavontae Turpin. That's
yes.
Right.
Okay.
USFL star.
So there's been one.
Yeah, there you go. So it is definitely down, obviously.
All right. Yeah. Has there been one? I guess so. All right. Not great, but yeah, that's an interesting approach. Oh no, someone said Turpin was preseason. Yeah, so I don't think there've been any. I'm looking at it right now. I don't think there've been any. That's kind of crazy. None through 9 weeks. Wow.
That seems pretty anomalous.
God, imagine if Williams does it today and wins you a tournament, Matt, with Williams. That'd be crazy.
And we have like a 5-minute diatribe to clip up. It's like, what other show?
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to say, we're clipping that and putting it everywhere. That'll live on. I'll just play that instead of the Hall of Fame segment, just on a loop.
There you go.
Oh, dude, every time he touches the ball now, it's just going to be like, let's go. Avery, touchdown. All right, let's talk receivers here. One more thing. I told you, if you wanted to get some opportunities to get your foot in the door and get 2 free months at Stokastic Plus Platinum, $240 value, and BetMGM is available in your state, do not be a dummy. No, in all seriousness, though, if you sign up using the link we have in the description, the one that Jordan's going to put in chat, use the. I didn't see that, Eric. Who did that? Do you know who did that? That's good. He looks like either a motivational speaker that just robs you for everything you have, or a really sick magic act on the Vegas Strip.
Oh no.
He does kind of look like a mime. That is good stuff. I love that. No, but hey, you're getting up to $1,000 risk-free bet. You're getting 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. That's all of our tools, everything that we have. Ownership, top stacks. Neil and Matt been referencing the top plays tool all day or all night long on this show, right? Optimal lineup percentages, top play percentages, all of the ownership in there, the leverage scores you're getting, everything for main slate, for showdown slate, and everything for every other sport too. All of our tools for every sport. I'm not just talking about the main ones. You're talking PGA, MMA, NASCAR, everything. 2 months entirely free. When you sign up, use the link, follow the directions, deposit $10 or more. Only has to be 10, but if you want to utilize that risk-free bet as well, you can put more in. And after the bet settles, bet on whatever you want. Bang, you got it. They'll hit you up. You'll get the 2 free months and you're in business. And hopefully you win that risk-free bet as well and build up a nice little bankroll over there, a little nest egg on BetMGM. Check it out. BetMGM, 2 free months. This is going down to 1 month very shortly too. And I wouldn't just tell you that. So take advantage of it now if you're looking to get in. And if you enjoy betting, even if you don't, shit. All right. Safe Din. Hi, should I fade the kickers tonight because of the weather? Great question. Let's actually quickly answer that now before we get to kickers and defense, because it's going to affect lineup construction a whole lot, Neil.
Yeah, so I am actually letting it affect me a little bit. So I'm loading up on defenses more than kickers here tonight because I think that's viable. Even if the weather does not become a factor, I still think that these are bad enough offenses that I'd rather be heavier on defenses rather than kickers. So I'm currently at about 30% on each of the defenses and about 11 to 13% on the kickers. Young-Ho Koo is actually, like, I wrote an article. Young-Ho Koo is the best in terms of our projection, both in terms of raw projection and in terms of value of the defenses and kickers. But I'm letting the weather affect my builds enough that I'm actually getting under the field on both kickers currently. Maybe I could change and get up a little bit more than what I have, 11 to 13%. But at 24% projected ownership on each of the kickers, I think I'm fine being underweight to the kickers. So if you want to fade the kickers and just believe the weather is going to affect them, I think that's totally fine, particularly because the weather doesn't necessarily have to affect them for the kickers to not do a whole lot. These teams might just not get the ball down into scoring position all that frequently. So if you want to fade the kickers somewhat, I think that's totally viable.
All right, Matt, what about you?
That scared me a little bit because I saw the kickers looking good on the tools. I saw, especially as you mentioned, Young-Ho Koo looking good. I thought kickers could be viable, especially on teams that tend to stall out instead of score. These teams are not exactly juggernauts offensively, but seeing in chat, we got boots on the ground, quite literally saying that it's pouring rain currently. And as you mentioned, these aren't teams that are getting into the red zone.
Conflicting reports, Matt, from people on the ground.
This is different. I can't be in Charlotte right now. I can't figure this out.
I hear you.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned that he looks good on the tools, but it is absolutely fine to say, based on the narrative I'm playing for today, like Neil said, the kickers don't make sense.
Yeah. They normally would have looked really good if this weather wasn't an issue at all. See, GQ, it's not raining hard at all. And now Nate's saying there's sharks on I-77. I mean, this is just bad news.
We got a lot of time before the game, though, too. The weather right now is not necessarily indicative of what's coming. There are a lot of different, as we've talked about with the weather, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. It might make sense to make some where you factor in the weather, some where you don't. If you're factoring in the weather, I think it hurts the kickers and probably helps the defenses.
All right. So I just pulled up live video footage in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's all still shots. So that doesn't help. It's wet. I can tell you that much, but that's about it. And yeah, give Neil a break. Young-Ho Koo. It's a wild way of pronouncing that name.
I pronounced it wrong. Okay.
No, listen, I think you get a pass on that. Okay. First of all, it's a kicker. We don't work on kicker pronunciation too often. Second of all, you just said it the way it looked.
Yeah. That's usually how I read, unless I actually heard it pronounced before. I just read what it says. Yeah.
Based on the spelling, you got to give him a pass.
Right. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
People are piling on because of the blue check mark now. They just want to attack me for anything they can. And it all comes down to the blue check mark is at the root of it.
I like that though. If you're gonna get into the blue, and this goes for you too, real verified over here. We have higher expectations.
That's right. Higher expectations. I got to get my pronunciation game on point.
That's okay. Listen, I've done that many times with this fellow. We just call him Koo.
So it's Young-Ho.
Yeah. You called him a
Good
ho.
to know. I called him a Young-Ho. It's a cool name, Young-Ho Koo. Cool name.
Young-Ho. Never mind. All right. Let's talk about, I caught myself there. Let's talk about wide receiver position. Matt, this is where it gets even more interesting. Maybe frustrating would be a better word, because I mentioned earlier, you have Terrace Marshall, who is on the field forever. He's literally running around on 98% of dropbacks over the last 2 weeks. That's significant. DJ Moore is the clear number one. And then on the other side, Drake London looked like he was on pace for a sweet rookie season to through the first 3 weeks. The precipitous drop-off that we've seen from Drake London is hard to explain. And then Kyle Pitts has like one good game on the season. It just so happened to come against Carolina. Those are the top guys. We'll get into the other guys later. Floor is yours.
Look, the most likely outcome here is that the only wide receiver that matters on the slate is DJ Moore. These players, man, you mentioned it with Drake London. At least we saw the targets go up a little bit in week 9. Prior weeks, it was 4 targets, 1 target, 5 targets. In week 9, it goes back up to 7, 5 in the red zone. So I will say that we finally saw the opportunity value start to shift in Drake London's favor to the point where I can say that there's a ceiling game possible. But ultimately, I do think DJ Moore is by far the best option at the wide receiver position from either team. Looks good in our tools. The target share is just simply different for him than it is for all other wide receivers. And as we've kind of alluded to, there is no one you can trust on the Atlanta side. And you're really telling me you're going to pivot from Moore to Laviska Shenault or Terrace Marshall? I realize that they're getting more usage since McCaffrey left, but this is basically Moore's offense, especially when we have an RBBC likely in the backfield. What's going on in chat now?
Oh, dude, there's always something going on. I'll tell you this much. Crazy Pyro just super chatted us $10. Said, assuming wins get worse and go up to 35, do you avoid kickers in cash? I think we kind of answered that. There's supposed to be the gusts up to 35 though, right? Just so we're clear, it's not supposed to be sustained, right? Or are we going to see wins?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, I think we're all just flying by the seat of our pants on the weather with this one.
I mean, what can you do? Nobody, even weathermen cannot predict the weather. So what are we going to do?
Exactly. I'll never forget the Eagles game in 2013 against the Lions, where they were calling for a dusting and they got 8 inches in an hour. Weird stuff happens.
That was the greatest football footage ever, though.
Awesome. The LaShawn McCoy stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Calvin Johnson.
Yep.
Yeah. And I forget who the kick returner was, but he had like 2 kick return touchdowns for Detroit in that game. Fun game.
Yeah.
Fun game. Yeah. My dad worked in the city and he worked in Philly and he was driving, but he got stuck on 95 for hours. It just shut down. It was an insane game. And I knew people at that game that stayed through the entirety of it. So yeah, respect. Neil, it's a $10 super chat, so I don't want to just dismiss it. Are you avoiding kickers in cash? It's a tough test because he's saying assuming the wins get worse and go up to 35, but we don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, if you knew that the winds were going to be 35 miles per hour, I think it would be obvious that you want to avoid the kickers. So my read would be I would rather play defenses because they are weatherproof. Defenses in this game are going to be fine regardless of the weather. So I'd probably be inclined to go to defenses instead of kickers, but that's not what the tools say. As Matt was saying, Younghoe Koo looks phenomenal in the tools. Eddie Pinheiro looks phenomenal in the tools. Both these guys have very positive leverage. So it's a little bit of a tough fade in cash. But if you want to play it safer, you could. I think it is viable to just pivot to the defenses.
Okay. Wide receivers, Neil. Matt broke down a good amount of this. Among the top guys, is there any hard prioritization for you among the Marshall, Moore, Pitts, Drake? And I'm including Pitts in this conversation at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, of the wide receivers, I think, as we said, DJ Moore, pretty clearly the number one. He is the one that you trust the most. He projects the best of all wide receivers. Drake London has actually been targeted 55 times on 206 routes run so far this year. So he's pretty clearly the leader as far as pass catching options for Atlanta so far this year. He has been the priority more so than Kyle Pitts. So I would say Drake London, probably number 2. Terrace Marshall, as I think you alluded to this, Laffy, he's played 92% of snaps in each of the Panthers' past 2 games. Yep. And he has also garnered 15 total targets in that span. So he has been targeted 15 times in the past 2 games. He seems to be taking on a bigger role for the Panthers. So for me, it's pretty clearly DJ Moore number 1, Drake London number 2. And then it's kind of a toss-up for me between Kyle Pitts and Terrace Marshall. And Kyle Pitts has the better on the year. He has 43 targets. He's clearly been more of a priority. But for the past couple of games, Terrace Marshall has really taken on a bigger role. So I could see him continuing to do that. And if he's going to get, 7-8 targets, he's certainly pretty interesting.
I think I'm Marshall over Pitts.
Are you?
I think so. With
Matt
that change in
Kajeski,
usage.
Matt Kajeski would agree with you. He was fired up about how disappointing Pitts has been.
Look, it's not working right now. And you could say, it's the offense. You could say it's a lot of things here, but ultimately I'm looking at a player who has more hype and name brand than actual viable upside here. We haven't projected for 8 or 9 fantasy points on DraftKings. I think that's being a little generous. I think
even though you like Mariota more, like is Mariota just for his legs today?
100% just for his legs, because I have floor and ceiling. As we said, he throws the 7th least amount of times in the NFL. And I was looking at some new pace stats, pace rate over expectation. The Falcons are the 3rd slowest team in the league. This team is hiding their offense.
Yeah. And somehow not doing that badly in the process. Cheshire Cat said Pitts gets the short passes. He's the guy. I guess you're talking about weather, but it's not actually true at all. He leads the team in deep attempts with deep targets with 12. No one else has more than 6. Outside of Demir Bird, who's just a deep threat, Kyle Pitts has the highest ADOT on the team. It's 14 yards average depth of target. It's 4 yards more than than Drake London, 4 yards more than Olamide Zaccheaus. So I'm not saying he can't get some of those short balls, but Kyle Pitts is a receiver. Kyle Pitts is not really a tight end in the traditional term way at all. So yeah, Terrace Marshall, it's hard not to kind of like him today. You figure they want to see what they got in this guy too, right? At this point, you're not going to the playoffs. You're not a winning team. You traded away your best running back. I think Terrace Marshall remains on the field for a very long time. I mean, pretty much every snap tonight. So yeah, very interesting to me. Matt, what about some of these tertiary options? Shi Smith, Zaccheaus, Demir Bird, basically straight boomer bust guy in Demir Bird.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen Demir Bird get in the end zone. In fact, I believe Demir Bird has 2 40+ yard touchdowns. So if we were talking on Monday, Neil, about the possibility of D-Jax changing the slate with 1 catch, a 40-yard touchdown from Demir Bird would certainly change a slate. Can't expect something like that. Shi Smith ran a 90% route participation rate last week as well against Cincinnati. 27 routes, only 2 targets. I'm sure his Fitbit looks good, but in terms of opportunity value, that's not great. Hey, he's a fine boomer bust play. He hasn't scored more than 3 fantasy points since week 5.
Yeah, that's not great.
0 in 3 weeks.
Do we want to avoid the pure boom bust deep threats today then? Because I get scared doing that. We've seen what Dante Pettis can do, and that just blows up a slate. Rashid Shaheed first. Remember we got done talking about him, and then I'm not even downstairs yet to watch the game, and I'm like, oh, it's 7-0. I wonder 55-yard touchdown from Rashid Shaheed.
Well, these are the types of people that you've famously got along with, Neil, in the Showdown streets. So I think you're the perfect person to talk to. These are, when you're mass multi-entering, these are your friends, especially when we don't have that many of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And currently I'm just looking at the latest crunch that I ran. I have 12.1% Smith. He's at 12.2% projected ownership. I have 8.1% Demir Bird. He's at 7.9% projected ownership. These are guys that traditionally I want to get over the field on. These kind of guys, and Demir Bird being the home run option. Smith has been just not that involved lately, but he has been still running routes. So maybe usually I try to factor in okay, he hasn't been getting targets, but he has still been running routes. So probably there's going to be some regression, some positive regression for Smith. So currently I'm playing it kind of safe, just right even with the field. But I think that these are guys you could certainly, try and play a little bit above the field on these guys and hope they can get there. I do have some concerns with the weather. I think that's kind of what's scaring me from really going in on these guys. but I'm right with the field on both Demir Bird and Smith. Now I'm afraid to say his first name because I'm like, is it Shy? Is it, how do you pronounce this guy's first name? So I'm just calling him by his last name. Run Smith. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying take it and just assume that it looks spelled nothing like it's spelled. No, it's Shy Smith. Yeah.
It's go route Smith. It's Go Smith.
Yeah, they call him GR.
All right. So I'm not currently, maybe I'll try and get a little bit above these guys, above the field on these guys, just because they do have relatively low ownership. I'm actually of the more contrarian options. The one that I'm taking the biggest stand on, I guess, is Laviska Shenault, who played 3 snaps in the last game. So not a high confidence play, but I think that he could, in a bad weather game, I could see Laviska Shenault being used more as kind of gadgety kind of option. So I think he might be more interesting in a weather game than a standard game. So I'm a little bit above the field on Laviska Shenault, but I have 10% to the field 7%. And he's also a name that I think guys want to play. Like we know that in like the best ball streets for years now, a lot of people have loved Laviska Shenault. So I'm not all that confident that his ownership is actually going to be at 7%. But currently I have 10% Visca. It's a hard situation to really, hone in on one of these receivers, given that I'm a little bit concerned with the weather. I'm kind of trying to bump up the running backs a little bit more than the receivers. But currently I'm, pretty close to the field, honestly, across the board on these receivers.
One more request here. Hit that thumbs up. We got 2,000 people hanging out with us on this beautiful Thursday night. I know you're out there. I know there's some of you out there that have been stingy with that thumbs up. It's Matt. I'm going to go. I think we can hit 500.
I think you might get your young way this time.
Okay. So now you're positive. Okay.
Yeah, I've been saving that for 4.5 minutes since I thought of it.
Oh, you have. A good thing I went to you.
Yeah. I know. It was great setup.
All right. We just hit 400. So we're in business, boys. Appreciate all you. In all seriousness, guys, it does help us. Otherwise, we wouldn't ask you and spend time on it, but it helps us immensely. You know how YouTube is. I joke about the overlords, but that it's how it goes. Subscribing, even commenting in chat and everything helps us a ton, and it helps us continue to put this content out. So thank you. All right. Any other receivers we want to get to, or should we talk about this tight end position? It's kind of interesting, actually.
I think we can move.
Yeah, we can probably move on.
Tommy Tremble. I'm not excited. You can't be excited about it, but he had an end zone target, which resulted in a touchdown last game. The only thing is he's not the same price as like a Noah Gray is when the Chiefs play. He's not like the $600. Neil, he's what is he, 3,200 or something? He's not that cheap for a guy that you're hoping gets 2 targets.
In a game, though, where maybe there's 2 or 3 touchdowns scored, if he scores a touchdown, he's probably optimal, right? Even at 3,200.
Big time. Yeah.
And he's certainly alive to score a touchdown. He's played at least 55% of snaps in each of the past 5 games for the Panthers. He's only been targeted 17 times so far this year on 143 routes run, but he's certainly a guy who could see a red zone look or two. So I like Tommy Tremble. I'm actually above the field. I have like 11-12% Tommy Tremble right now. So not far above the field. Again, the field's at like 9%. I wanted to get above the field there just because I think that, he could score a touchdown. He's probably in the optimal if he scores a touchdown. But for me right now, it's, 11-12%.
And yes, it is the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm, I've done a lot of research. We all have into the YouTube algorithm. It's a finicky son of a bitch. Just never, you move one way, it moves the other way. It's tough. Anyway, Matt, tight ends here, Tremble, Ian Thomas. We talked about Pitts. I don't think we need to get that much deeper into Pitts. You could talk about Hesse if you want, though, too.
Parker Hesse and Michael Pruitt. I honestly think that if you're playing large field tournaments, $200 Hesse or $600 Pruitt make a little bit of sense because of the attention that Pitts will naturally get by the field. We do have to mention that Pitts at the flex position does look like he has a positive leverage score right now. I'm not excited to go there. I'm certainly not excited to go to anyone below Tommy Tremble on the Carolina side. But we're talking about a player in Tremble whose most likely outcome is between 4 and 6 points. But if he falls into the end zone, good things happen for us. I totally get why we're going there. In red zone targets, he's had 2 total. He's had 2 targets over 20 yards as well. There's actually only been 22 tight ends this year who have 2 deep targets, 20 plus air yard targets this year. So interesting usage for him a little bit.
I guess when it all boils down to it, we got to talk a little bit about the cheap options, just to drill down in this. And Cipolleti, MM3 Cipolleti said, tell me if I'm pronouncing that right too. Just walked outside, 100% rain, but 0% wind in Charlotte. We got a lot of people in Charlotte.
Apparently half our audience is in Charlotte right now.
Seriously.
Just today, though, they traveled there.
Yeah, maybe. I guess, Neil, when it comes to you being overweight, underweight on some of these really cheap players, I mean, how low are you going? How overweight are you getting on some of these guys that are not projected well, but maybe are the difference maker if they do get that 1 touchdown on 2 receptions?
Yeah, it's tough for me to really love any of these like 200, 400 guys. I currently have 4.7% Parker Hesse. The field is at 2.9%. I have 2% Giovanni Ricci. I have 4% Michael Pruitt. Like, none of these guys are huge priorities for me. I'm trying to be right around with the field. I actually think of these guys, my favorite is probably Ian Thomas, who I'm actually even with the field on. But that's where I've ended up, and I've had to move on to FanDuel. I think that Ian Thomas is probably the most interesting of these really cheap tight end options. He's the guy who actually has a fine projection. He's also been targeted 17 times this year, so he's actually been targeted just as many times as Tommy Tremble on the year. But he's also kind of similar to Tommy Tremble in that it's basically touchdown or bust. I don't see Ian Thomas having 5 receptions for 40 yards or something where he puts up a score without scoring a touchdown. But I would say of these tight ends, Tommy Tremble's number 1. Ian Thomas is probably number 2 for me, obviously not including Kyle Pitts. I'm going to have the most of Kyle Pitts of these tight ends, but it would be those 2 for me. And then I'm a little bit above the field on the other guys, but not really confident that we're going to get anything out of them.
Okay. Matt, what about you? Same question.
Ian Thomas has a really funny stat line this year, and none of it's really great. First 4 weeks of the season, 3 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets. Next 2 weeks, 2 targets, 2 targets. Next 2 weeks, 1 target, 1 target. Next week, 0 targets. It's not a good trend line.
No.
Not a good trend line. I get
not.
why you're going there. Neil, you're great at this. And so, honestly, if Tremble looks exciting at 4 to 6 fantasy points, and we still have a chance where a player at 1 to 2 fantasy points is even less popular, I get why we're going there in this ugly matchup. Same thing with Giovanni Ricci. I still think I would rather take a chance if I can get up to these like 3K players. You get a slightly higher ceiling, but that's a big difference in salary, a big difference, an order of magnitude. So some lineups you got to get down there. I think Parker Hesse looks okay as well. Gosh, that is so gross, but hey, sometimes you got to do it.
I think we're actually on the same page. Like, I don't feel really like there are slates where I'm like, this 200 player really interests me. This isn't a slate like that where I have a lot of interest. So I'm with you that I think that if I'm playing 10 lineups, it probably makes more sense to just go to guys who have the more likely shot at, to see the end zones, guys who are 3,000, 4,000. So we're on the same page. Because I'm playing 150, I'm sprinkling these guys in because they're so low owned, but I have no confidence in the really cheap guys this week.
It definitely appears like Tremble is trending upwards as far as snap count goes, though.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
agreed.
He was playing like 30, 40%. He's up to, 55, 60 over the last 5 weeks, which kind of, Matt, seems to be in line with what you were saying when it comes to Ian Thomas's targets going down.
Yep, exactly. Tremble ran a 56% route participation rate last week, while Ian Thomas was down at 20%, which was actually up from 10% a week ago. That's, yeah. I mean, we're one game slate, the trend line can turn, but it's just been going down all year for Thomas.
Sam Pierce for the super chat. If rain prediction is true, again, we don't know. Is Patterson the best captain? So I guess we can take it from a tournament perspective, since you already gave your favorite captain for cash games, which was Marcus Mariota. Matt?
Honestly, I think you can make an argument that Cordero Patterson might be my favorite captain in tournaments, with the ways that it can go right for him. And, obviously quarterbacks on a 1-game slate for cash games, not going to move away there. But Cordero Patterson, it's expensive, and I know our tools don't love it. I still think he has a ton of upside on a team that doesn't pass, doesn't play fast, and wants to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. If he plays more, I think it'll be all right.
All right. Do we have any super chat? Are we caught up, Jordan? Yeah, we're good to go. Jordan Klein, everybody, producing today's show, doing a fantastic job as always. And he told me he'd have producer cam back, but I bet he was full of shit. Oh, okay, son. That's fair. All right. All right, we'll hold you to that. The chat wants Jordan Klein, producer cam. It was here for a while, and now it's gone. Also, we have 20 likes to 500, so we're getting there. Still 1,700 people watching. We spent a lot of time on kickers and defense. We already talked kickers. Let's quickly hit defense and then build a lineup so we can get in and out of here before lock. Neil, how you doing with your lineups? Want to make sure everything's good here.
Yeah, I've submitted my DraftKings lineups. I'm doing my FanDuel lineups as we speak. Pretty early, but I'm getting there.
All right.
So we can
appreciate your dedication and ability to multitask. Matt, I'll go to you I should have been like, Neil, give us a thorough breakdown on defense.
Yeah.
What are you doing with defenses? If the weather holds up, who knows?
Yeah, so we have a really good read on the weather today, so we know exactly how to play this one. Look, these defenses are not good. Panthers run defense is probably the best unit of the 4 defensive units we have. 23rd in Football Outsiders DVOA. So they're all the rush defenses and the pass defenses are below average. The thing is, both of these quarterbacks have been known to make huge mistakes. A pick 6 could absolutely change things. I do have to say, the Panthers defense at the captain position has a slightly positive leverage score. Take that as you will. And both defenses at the flex position have positive leverage scores. So they're in the optimal lineup more often than the field is expected to roster them. Does that make them fantastic median and ceiling plays? No, but it certainly makes them okay today.
Hey, fellas, let's build a lineup.
Let's do it.
What do you say?
For sure.
All right. Neil, who do you want at captain?
Let's go with Cordero Patterson. He's expensive. He's going to make us make an ugly lineup. That's always fun, right?
You said CPAT? Patterson?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Matt. Patterson, not cheap at captain. That gives us 64.60 remaining per player.
All right. I'm going to go a little down the board. Let's do Terrace Marshall because of the trends we've seen in the route participation rate. Obviously not my favorite. Actually not that cheap, but let's do it. Let's get contrarian.
All right. I dig it. We're talking large field tournament here. I'll go. I really don't just want to fade kickers because the weather could be bad. Like we don't know. So it's definitely possible that they do have themselves a game, right? And they look good in our tools, right, Neil?
They do look good in our tools.
I'm only doing this to open some things up to you guys because I'm charitable. I'm gonna go Young Wei Koo.
Okay.
Neil, we got 6,600 per player remaining.
We've talked about how much we like Tommy Tremble. We go there.
Yeah, why not? That's going to open some things up for us, Matt.
All right. Now it gets interesting. We probably need a quarterback. Let's go Mariota.
Oh, all right. So you're just leaving me with shit. I get it. That's all right. 6,300. Oh, what a dead zone that is.
This is gross. Yeah, honestly, maybe we flex off of Terrace Marshall. He's a little expensive if we're going to play this, but
I mean, that is difficult. If you go Terrace Patterson at captain makes it tough too. Maybe we just go Hesse if you want to go Mariota. Go Hesse instead of Trimble. Maybe you go with Mariota, and that gives you. I'm just curious. That gives you 9,300. You can go whoever you want. DJ Moore, Drake London, Dante Foreman.
I like that one.
Hesse could have one catch for a touchdown, right?
Oh, right. That's in the Orfield special stat line right there.
Yeah, don't love it, but crazier things have happened. Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. Let's do it. That'll do it. This is fun, fellas, as always. And I think all of us greatly appreciate you guys being here as well. All right, I was just trying to get these in. All right, we're good. Neil, we good? Matt, we good?
We're good. Got my lineups in.
Yes, sir.
Having my beer now.
Hope you guys are good in chat. You guys were, as usual, just amazing. On fire.
That's wonderful. Fanatic called me a loser for blind the blue check mark. I mean, it's just everybody piling on. Cheers to you guys.
Neil's never gonna let this go.
It's apparently my birthday now. According to chat, it is.
Dude, that's a thing. That's been my birthday every day for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
Can we get you a nice white tee with a big blue check on it?
Let's do it. Yeah, I'd wear that.
Right?
Yeah, I want the whole world to know that I've got the blue, and we got to put under it. This member has a blue check mark because he bought Twitter Blue. Got to differentiate there.
That's good. I'm gonna get one that says the other thing. And
we'll walk around the real check mark.
Hey, the Showdown Shaman at verified on Twitter. You can't miss him. Player Q, DFS, Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. I'm at Laffy_D. That check mark's authentic, boys. Real leather. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this show. As always, you guys are the best. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here for Sunday's Deeper Dive. Peace.